you'll understand what that UC stands for in just a minute. I'm Kenna Rood.
I'm Braven Griffin.
I'm Cantrell.
All right. So before we get started, we just want to tell you all a little bit of something about ourselves. But I'll be introducing our team here. Cantrell, he is a BS in Management Science and Mathematics, but he's also pursuing his Master's in Operations Research. Kyle really attributed to the team by having a lot of connections on campus. Being an RA for the past 3 years, he was a really great asset to the team, being a faculty liaison to people who we had to work with while we were requirements gathering during this project mostly. And he also contributed a lot to the logic of the program that we developed in the end. Braven is also Management Science and Math, but he's graduating in May, in 4 days actually, with also his Master's in Operations Research, and will be working for Frito-Lay. His experience at Frito-Lay has given him a background in Visual Basic, a computer coding language that we use heavily in this project. And then I'm Kenna Rood. I'm a Management Science major, and I'm getting my Master's in Civil Engineering and Transportation Management. But I'll be going to school part-time while I go to work for Frito-Lay next year as well. All right, so let's get started. So throughout this project, we're going to be talking to you about a few things. First, I want to introduce to you our client, which, as you can tell, is SMU. And we'll be talking to you about our project timeline, a little bit about the process, and then we're going to jump right into the problem that we've had. Talk about the challenges, and then, of course, we're going to have the final solution. Our final solution is a computer program, and so we'll be running a demo. We think it's pretty fun. And then we'll be talking about the next steps and where we can be taking this project from here. And then we'll go into some Q&A. Okay, so the master project plan, something that we've all heard about, but for us it was a really big asset. So luckily for us, we had actually heard about a lot of the things that went into the project plan, but it was a really great asset to hear as we started with our client, which is Southern Methodist University. Our contact was Professor Barr, who is the chair for the EMIS department. This project is completely centralized around the university curriculum, as you see, as we previously mentioned. And none of the seniors in this room actually are on the UC, we're on the old curriculum. So the project benefits the class of 2018 and all future classes coming through SMU. So this is our project timeline. It's just really just a generic timeline of the things that we were hoping to get done during our time. We're really proud to say that we actually finished sooner than we thought and with a lot more than we actually expected to get done. We were really pleased with the progress, and we can attribute a lot of that to the master project plan. Luckily, a few of these things that were tools that were put in place by the premise, as Professor Singh has mentioned, were things that we were familiar with already from work that we had done at past internships. But we were really happy with the way that it really confirmed our understanding and increased the communication amongst our team. And it ultimately led to, I think, the team's success. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kyle, and Kyle's going to get us started with discussing the problem with the university curriculum.
Yeah, so all three of us were lucky enough to come here to SMU, live on this beautiful campus, meet all the great professors, make friends, and have a lot of great opportunities in business too. And so we decided we really wanted to give back to this university who's given so much to us. And that's why we really chose a project near and dear to our hearts at SMU with the university curriculum. And okay, so this is the university curriculum. SMU is going through its centennial anniversary, and so they decided to implement a new curriculum that is a little more new-fashioned and matches the liberal arts stamp that our university has. And the old curriculum was very straightforward. It was basically each requirement had 1 or 2 classes that fulfilled it. You would just choose one, go up, and once you got to the end, you fulfilled everything, and you graduated. The new one is more liberal arts focused, so you can take anything that fulfills one of these requirements in the bottom for your foundations, and then the pillars, and then the proficiencies and experiences, and the classes count and overlap. This way, they could have a little more freedom to mix and match majors, take classes that they potentially wanted to take that might have been a little bit, outside of their particular realm and their field of interest for their major. And then at the end, they would finish with a capstone, which is kind of like the senior design project where they show off all the skills that they learned. This was instituted for the class of 2016, which is the junior class now. They made a couple changes, and our model is only effective for the freshmen and anyone after that. But there were a couple problems with the UC getting started off of that. The problem was they didn't have enough classes count for enough pillars. So majors that had a lot of hours, things like that, they couldn't take a double major and graduate within 4 years, which is something that President Turner said must be able to happen. Another thing that was a big problem for the majors with a lot of hours, AP credits almost always counted for IIC 1. Even, sometimes there would be US history, things like that, that sound like it would count for history credit, but it didn't, still counted for IIC 1. So people could take potentially 5 AP tests and only come in with 1 extra hour of credit. And then last year, they did the UC Model 1.0, which was a different senior design project. This project just said, is it possible to graduate with an electrical engineering major in 4 years? And they used a GAMS model to do a set covering problem, make sure that all the classes were variables, and then solved it, and they found out it was possible, barely, just barely. And then they redid, we decided that that wasn't enough. The students were looking at it and saying, okay, so it's possible. How do I do it? How do I get through all these classes, choose the exact right schedule? What if I can't choose the same schedule that this model was putting out? There was no software available. It's a moderately hard operations problem. It's NP complete, which is the second only to NP hard. And so there weren't too many computer programs that could really do it quickly, especially enumerating it or just not doing a linear programming model like we did and just doing it by hand and calculating every single type of class would take a long time. And so there wasn't really anything out there. We searched a lot for different schools if there were anything there, and there wasn't. At some schools that weren't liberal arts, when it was more of the straightforward curriculum, they had plans where you could choose classes there that were optimal, but for a liberal arts school like us, where there was a lot of overlap, there just really isn't anything out there. And so we decided to make the 2.0, which is a tool that students will use, not a tool that students can use. We decided that that's really important to us, that this will be used in the future and that it won't just get thrown away after our project's done. And we want to minimize the number of courses to graduate while still keeping that creativity available where they can take courses that they want to take, like the integral curriculum was intended to do. So we had a couple challenges, start right off the bat. We are college students, and so we're pretty poor, and we have 1 semester to work on this, and we don't have all the data, and we only have a certain skill set in EMIS, and we don't know how to code for PHP, things like that, that work on the internet. And so that limited us on which platform we were going to choose to make our computer program on. We chose Excel because also the people using our product, the students, are also college students, and most of them aren't actually EMIS, and so we wanted people who don't know how to use GAMS to be able to use our product also. And so we figured most people can use Excel, especially our product, because it's with VBA and everything, it's really just a couple button clicks, so it's not too hard to use. And then we had, when we chose Excel, we had a couple more limitations. Those limitations were that Excel solver only allows for 200 variables maximum. And there's thousands of classes that count for credit at SMU, so this is a pretty big problem. And we had to shrink our variable size. What we did was, instead of having each class be a variable, we shrunk it down to class types. If a class fulfills, let's say, 3 pillars that are historical context, IIC 1, and PRIES 1, then, which is a science credit, then they will be considered one variable, and later we'll show you with our output how we show the consumer, the student, what to choose from that. And that shrunk it down a lot. And then after that, we shrunk it down even more because we were at 180 variables or so. And we decided, you know what, we want this to be able to be used forever. So we want a lot more room for more classes, more majors, anything like that, more pillars even. So we wanted less variables, more free space, shrunk it down by adding a majors tab that cut the variables down to 130, and it also made it less likely that more variables will be there in the future. And we also ran into the problem of Macs being compatible because it's a Windows program on a Mac computer, and the solver function is a third-party program. And so there were a lot of coding issues there, and we made a kind of less useful function for the Mac, but it still works moderately well. But there were some things that they just don't, Windows, the third party, and Mac don't intend on fixing with the code. And so we decided that it was better to just do a full-fledged Windows model that any student can use a Windows computer on campus. And so I'm going to hand it off to Braven.
All right, so Kyle's kind of talked about the problem, some of the different platforms we thought about, so we decided, of course, to go ahead with the Excel and kind of talk through some of the core challenges there. So we'll go ahead and roll over to the next slide. So using the Excel solver, as Kyle mentioned, this is a set covering binary integer program. Dr. Olenek taught us a lot about this semester in integer programming. But the model also adjusts, as Kyle talked about, for major requirements. So if I select management science, and management science fulfills certain pillars and requirements, all the classes that only fulfill those requirements are stripped out of the model to begin with, so you don't have dead weight hanging around in your model, so your model will run faster, because if you click a button and it takes 20 minutes to get an output, it's not really good for anybody. So again, Kyle talked about we wanted something that students will use, so we wanted to make it as user-friendly as possible. So really it's a few inputs. You select your major, and then you select any pillars or proficiencies that you've already fulfilled. So say, I just finished my freshman year, I went and took Introduction to Archaeology, and it satisfies these two pillars and these two proficiencies. There's an option to go ahead and enter that in for the students so that those can also be pulled out of the model, so only give them what they need to see. Another thing we wanted for the output is, instead of just showing, okay, if you take these 4 classes, we wanted to show lists of classes. So you pick one from each list. So therefore, so if I have a list, 4 lists of 5, that's 5 to the 4 different combinations of classes that you can use, instead of just saying, well, here's a solution. We also wanted to add a couple more features. Once we had really gotten into the VBA, we had built a lot of the functionality going in and filtering and displaying. It was really easy to go in and add a class search feature where you can say, okay, I just want to see all the classes in the university that satisfy Creativity and Arts 1 and Historical Context 1. I just need those 2 pillars. I'm about to graduate. What are my options? So you just click that instead of having to go through the whole model and type in everything that you've already taken, and you can just search immediately for a class. Another feature we found was the save list feature, because we have an option to say, I don't like this list of classes. It's kind of came out with a crappy list for me. I'm not really interested in those, which again allows for that creativity and freedom for students to come up with their own solutions. So the save list allows them to say, I kind of like this set, but maybe there's something better, so I'll save it and come back to it. So with that said, actually now we're just going to go in straight to a demo of the tool.
Yes. So one of the best ways for us to describe to you how this tool works is to actually put you in the place of a student. So we have this. Okay. So we would like to use the example of 2 separate students who are about to go through the UC curriculum. So obviously we're all GEC, but for just a moment, let's pretend that we're back in freshman year, we're not graduating in 4 days, and all is good in the world. Great. So if I could actually get participants from the audience, currently our model runs majors from Lyle, Cox, and Meadows.
For just the back, that's the engineering school, the business school, and the art school.
Yes. So if I could get 2 people to give me majors in one of these 3 schools. Yes.
Painting.
Painting?
Yeah.
Is painting a major?
It's called
Yeah.
art.
Art.
There's different types of art.
Okay, well, we'll do
Okay.
art and major, and then we go to
Accounting.
accounting. Okay, great. So we're doing art and accounting. We're a really diverse individual today.
Alright, so, Kenna, we have our major selected, so I'm coming in, I'm a freshman, I click on a little drop down button here, and I say, okay, my first major is going to be accounting, boom, right there. Second major is going to be art, so I'm going to select the second drop down box, select art. And coming in, let's say I took a few AP classes, right, Kenna?
I don't know.
No AP classes?
You're kind of basic.
Kind of basics,
Yeah, kind of
coming in,
basic.
but
Yep.
I have big ambitions, so I'm going to do art and accounting. Alright, so we're going to leave all of these guys blank. Leaving them blank won't hurt anything. You can also enter 0 if you just really felt so inclined. And then we kind of have some more instructions down here, details for the students in case they have a question, can kind of look at the directions. But it also, just to show you, in case you really get confused, we have the university curriculum hiding over here. So if you're like, what in the world is CA1 or PRIE, philosophical and religious inquiry and ethics? So those are all just hiding over there, so you have that as reference. All right, so we have our major selected. We kind of know what we want to do. We say, all right, find my classes. All right, so our model turns to the background, and it spits out some lists. So if we look over here, we see the current number of lists that we have is 5. So I need 5 different classes. If I take one from each of these 5 lists, it's going to take me around 15 hours, give or take. Some of the classes could be 2 or 4 hours, depending on if labs are required or not. So just kind of a rough estimate there. If we scroll down, we see the first list only contains one class, which is Anthropology 2302. You'll see anthropology pops up a lot. They did a lot to go ahead and get their tags done for their department. Course list 2, you got a few more options. Course list 3, 4, and 5. You say, oh, general chemistry lab. That sounds awful. I just can't imagine that. So we have this nice red button here that says, I don't like this list of classes. So if we select that, all right, so what that has done is that has removed general chemistry lab from the data set. It's not there anymore. And then we went ahead and resolved the model and got our next best solution, which is also 5 classes. So we didn't go up any classes yet, because there could be multiple solutions that are still 5 classes. And as you keep going through and, oh, I don't like people of the earth, I don't like introduction to archaeology. Oh, that's a decent list. Aquatic biology, what is that? So we keep going through, and eventually we're going to get to 6 classes. So now it's going to take 6 different classes to get it. But as we're going, we say, okay, maybe this is a good solution. So we have this handy Save This Solution button. Select that. All right, so now if we look down at the bottom, we've created a new tab, new sheet down here. And that's going to just go ahead and keep our solution that we just had. We can hit back. We can go ahead and keep playing that all day. But let's go and look at a different example. Okay?
Yes. So we have one student, and this student was very, very simple. Not coming in with any other credit. Decided they were ambitious. They had a double major. But then we also know that there are people who are a little bit more complex. We'll call this student Eli. Eli will be student number 2, a more ambitious student. So they're an engineer. They're a mechanical engineer. But instead of double majoring in something like art or accounting, he realizes that he wants to have a specialization in engineering management and entrepreneurship. So this is a very particular way of going about your university curriculum. So when you go through and you have your mechanical engineering degree, what you realize is that in order to get this specialization, all you need is 4 additional classes. These 4 right here. So looking at these 4 different classes, what you can see is that actually 2 of them, this number 1 and number 3, actually do not fulfill any pillars at all. They don't fulfill any proficiencies at all. So you can just think that you will, of course, have to take this class, but when it comes to the model, you really don't need to consider them. So what we see is that the 2 classes left actually fulfill a total of 5 separate pillars. But you say, hey, on this current sheet, I can't say that I'm looking to do engineering management entrepreneurship degree. Well, what's really easy about the way that Access is set up is that it provides you with this type of information point blank when you sign up for your classes. So what you're able to do is when you go into the model, you say, I'm a mechanical engineer. And then you're able to say, I'm going to take 1 proficiency of this, 1 writing, 1 IIC2, and 1 of each of these. That is what these different features, where this says list the pillars and proficiencies, play into account.
Okay, so we have OC right here, it's oral communications, so I can select the down arrow there. There's actually 2 requirements for that, but what we're getting here is only 1, so we're going to select 1. Writing is also 1, and then we have IIC 1, or 2, excuse me.
Well, what's useful about the ability to input these, just the way that Braven is doing right before your eyes, is that makes the tool useful for people who are not just incoming first years. As you take more classes, you'll have more inputs that are outside of your major because you're taking classes that are fulfilling the liberal arts. And so you'll be able to use this actual function for the rest of the 4 years that you're in college. But as he also mentioned, that we also have the class search function, so that when you're the second semester senior and you realize you only have 1 pillar left, you can just search for that one as well.
So we go ahead and run the model with this mechanical engineering student. If we scroll over, given what they have now, it's only going to take them 4 classes outside of their major to complete the university curriculum, given this list. And we can go ahead and keep playing through like we did in the previous one, but just kind of show you how that might affect it. If we can go back here and we can select clear all, so saying, I'm just a mechanical engineer and I'm not necessarily specializing in anything. I can still take any of those classes if I want to for my mechanical engineering electives in Adam, but I'm not necessarily convinced that I want to. So I clear them all out, and then I hit 5 classes again, give us a new set of solutions, and still only going to take 4 classes. So as a mechanical engineer, hey, the specialization really doesn't even help us out that much. But it just, again, it depends on the major, it depends on the specialization, it depends on your options. It could make an impact, it could not. So.
The reason that this class counter, for those of you who are not familiar, the reason that the class counter and the hour calculator is so important is that this is going to be a tool not only for students who are choosing their courses, but also for the university curriculum committee, who is currently developing these tags, developing the curriculum, and continuing to do that. If they're able to go into our tool, select mechanical engineering and art, for example, they're going to say, we want students to be able to do these majors, we want them to be able to do it in 8 semesters, and is that possible? Well, hopefully our model will help them be able to calculate that, and ultimately help with the development of the university curriculum in future years.
And so we went ahead and added in our class search feature as well. We had some of the really uses some of the same logic, so it was pretty straightforward to add that function in as well. So if we click class search, what this is going to do is allow us to search for all classes that satisfy a certain set of pillars and proficiencies. There's no class actually that satisfies more than 2 pillars, so you're just kind of wasting your time here, so we kind of had to put you a note there. So if you start selecting, I just want to see what class fills everything, well, there's not one, so that's why the model exists. But if we do creativity part 1 and human diversity, for example, so we define classes, and so these are all the classes. There are 6 of them that satisfy both of those tags. So some of the list may be really big, some of them may be really small. This is also a tool that the UC committee can use to say, hey, it would be really nice if people could take more classes that satisfy both of these pillars, since a lot of people need them, and maybe look at ways to advance that in the future. So any questions about the model? Anything else you want to see about the model before we go ahead and switch back over to the presentation?
So when you show the comments on your list, will that, are you pulling those out of Access?
So well, actually what that is the data set that the UC committee gave us. So some of those comments could be things like, oh, this class is, you only get these pillars if it's taught by this professor, or if it's an honors section. Really we left that in there so that it'd be pretty straightforward to go and add the information from Access of these are the classes that are going to be offered in the fall, so you can see if your class is offered or is not offered. Because there's not currently visibility there, because tying into Access is a whole other piece of something we didn't want to get into. So, any other questions on the model?
For those of you who are not familiar, Access is the website in which we use to enroll in our courses. Yeah.
Not the
Yes.
Microsoft.
Can you do,
Thanks for clearing that up.
can you do minors as opposed to just doing a major and a second major?
Right now, we don't have the capacity to do a minor, but if you were to do a minor, you would do something similar to this in understanding what classes you're taking and then plugging them in.
We'll kind of touch on that a little bit in the next step at the end. Okay. We'll go ahead and jump back into the rest of our presentation. Jump just back to the beginning. Okay, Okay, so beta testing, again, we wanted this to be useful for the students, so us developing it for seniors and playing around with it ourselves really didn't serve any purpose, so we kind of want to go and get some actual people on the UC to play around with it, as well as get the advising staff. We thought this might be a useful tool for them. Ian McManus said it's awesome and helped make the UC make sense, and kind of had to pry it out of his fingers at the end to go back and make additional adjustments to it. The Lyle undergraduate advising staff, actually right down the hall here, we had a chance to sit down with them and walk them through the model. We kind of found out is, initially we thought this might be a really useful tool for them to use, and I think it may be in some capacity, but they said, okay, look, I have 200 students to advise, and I only have 15 minutes per student. I don't really have time to walk each of them through all, I don't like this list button. So I think it'll be really great, the students will be, it'll help them navigate through the UC and definitely be a tool that they pointed to, but not necessarily something to use during the advising themselves. We had another student that said, can I have this now? And we told him it wasn't finished, and he said they frankly didn't care. Okay, so again, we had 1.0 that was handed to us, and so all along, we want students to use this. We want this to be useful for the university and something that can be used for years to come. So as any piece of software, it needs to continue to evolve over time. And so kind of the next steps is for UC 3.0, if anybody wants to tackle that next year, will be coming up with possibly a web-based solution. We discussed doing that, but just didn't really have the skill set and couldn't really learn that skill set in the matter of the 3 months that we had to do this project. In addition to the web-based solution, obviously be compatible on all computers. The limited functionality with Mac, given the number of students at SMU who have Mac computers, is a real concern. In additional features, we'd love for it to be able to link to Access, but again, that was kind of over our heads for the time being. And then we can expand the selections to majors, minors, and specializations, where you could select those from a menu. That'd be pretty easy to go in and add that data to the tool. We left plenty of space to add classes, add requirements, add extra majors. Kind of came into a matter of time for us. For each of these majors, we had to look through the course catalog and determine which majors satisfied which courses, look up the courses. Just became very time consuming. So we ended up with 43 majors. Didn't have time to tackle the minors and specializations. So Dr. Barr, Dr. Nolinik, maybe partner up with some CSE students next year. Can make them for a really interesting UC 3.0 senior design project. So all in all, we were pleased with the process, with the product that we put out. We're handing that off now to Dr. Barr, as well as going to send a copy to Peter Moore, who is the UC director. He's kind of had meetings with him throughout. He's been very interested in it, and hopefully we'll get this into the hands of students as they start coming into implementation soon. So, are there any questions that you have?
For the benefit of the judges here, this does use operations research model, which you saw with the lumber problem, but the team decided to actually resort to Excel and use Excel Solver, which is very prevalent among companies like yours. These tools are there, and what they did was how easily they took a tool like Excel and were able to model a program like this and a problem like this and solve the problem. So just wanted to make sure that there was an appreciation for some of the advanced features of Excel.
Yeah, the computer science, one of the professors there, he was like, I don't really understand how you did this, but this is really cool.
Yes,
I
yeah.
was able to use this. So, it's cool.
Some of the very pure OR analysts probably will shy away from. No, Excel is for doing spreadsheets. But it is empowered. It has a lot of features, and I'm so glad actually when you mentioned that you are looking into Excel and you think that you could do it. I didn't have my doubts. I thought that Excel was fully equipped to handle such problems.
I have two questions, if I may. Thank you. First question is, did you have fun doing this project?
It was a blast.
Yeah.
It's kind of a pet project, I think, I know for myself, and I think for the rest of the team. I know Kyle was running around getting every freshman on campus to look at it. They had free time, and it's like, oh, we can add this feature, and just really got to dive into it.
Second question then is, are you proud of your work?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's something to remember. When you're having fun, you're going to do great work. And so as you guys enter into the business world and you start applying the skills you've learned at SMU, when you are lucky enough to almost strike gold in your career and you get onto a project or you get into a job where it's fun, enjoy that, because you're going to do some of the greatest work in your career and you're going to have a lot of pride in it. And it's also a great opportunity for growth. And so, you know, I feel like the presentation went great. I like the scenarios on the whiteboard. Mix it up, get off PowerPoint a little bit. Believe it or not, that's something that business and sales professionals train on. They train on going away from PowerPoint altogether. What if you lose your computer on the way to the airport? Now you're presenting on a whiteboard. Can you still get the message across, right? And so the different styles of presentation I thought were great. And so I don't really have any questions other than the ones I asked, but great job.
Thank you.
I have a comment and a question. The comment is just, it was very easy, like Jason said, to just sit and listen to this because of the interaction between the three of you. The flow, and I could see, you could tell who's in charge of what part, but the flow was really, really clean. Now, looking at, I had a chance to look at your outline here. And I've always wondered why the project manager had more hours allocated to them than the people doing the heavy lifting.
Mostly it was just, okay, so I was the project manager, and it's honestly what kind of happened was it was just a lot of the paperwork in regards to the meeting agendas. It just kind of adds up throughout the week. You know, we would sit down, you know, for like some coding sessions and things like that, but it was just more of an instance of, like, I helped a lot with the like requirements gathering, and it was just like, I guess it was like small hours throughout the week instead of the big chunks of time.
I totally agree. That's why I wanted to find that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul
Nothing
is,
against them. It's just a lot of like really small. Yeah.
Paul in his mind is fully entrenched that success of any project starts with a project manager.
Yeah.
So otherwise, the only probability of success you had was about 27%, 28%.
Yeah.
Kenna brought it up into the 80s.
Yeah.
So we are sold over the years that it takes good project management to make a project succeed rather.
Agreed.
I want to say is one of their points of contact on this project. They exceeded all my expectations. I was trying to drive their solution one direction, they wanted to go another. It's okay, and they had it right. I mean, they knew a better way to go than I did, and they're the ones that came up with the ideas about how to crunch it down to a much smaller problem. And I guess that's the beauty of constraints and the limitations. You just have to get creative to do things, and it makes everything better. That breakthrough that you guys made just made it really work and make it. I think it's going to be quite useful. The reason I wrote you for a copy was because my son's coming to see me on the phone. He needs to use it. Figure out what he's going to do.
Yeah, tell him to get in that anthropology class.
Yeah,
Which fills everything.
What's next? Archaeology.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Good job. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so if you thought that this UC with your program is going to be a very productive tool for SMU's upcoming classes, watch what the next team has to talk about solving a productivity problem for Altair Global. So they had approached us with two different problems. The first one that you saw, the relocation. This one is going to be what causes the productivity of a relocated person to go down, and we're going to hear to see if there are any solutions for that.
As Dr. Singh said, we're a team productivity, so we brought some soda in case you wanted to add some caffeine. I'm pretty sure it's ready. So feel free to grab it.
Would you like one?
Yeah, we don't want to take it home, so please take it.
Do you want one?
I'm sure.